Welcome to Six and the Six. Tonight's great guests, Jeff Vieira and Ray Teng. Welcome, gentlemen.
Nelsey, how are you?
Good. How are you guys?
Good.
I'm all right, all
Now,
right.
this is the first time I've had multiple guests on, and it's the first time we're doing something a little different. We're going to go through six different topics and see what we think.
Well, sounds good.
You guys good to go here?
We are.
Topic
Yeah.
one.
Topic one.
One of my all-time favorite topics, the pay to play discussion. Pluses, minuses, um, impact of what it has on, on the sport. We'll talk specifically soccer, but I think it's applicable to all sports. And let's go. Ray, what do you have on pay to play?
I hate it. I don't like it. I understand why it's around for the wrong reasons. Uh, I'll go with that first.
Okay,
My
quickly, JV, what's just a quick.
Well, I mean, if we didn't have to pay, that'd be great. But I mean, the reality is that these are all businesses, and so if we could set up a method where nobody was paying, that'd be excellent. But unfortunately, that's not the way it works, especially in the United States of America, where it's big business. So I'd love to see what it would look like if it wasn't pay to play. I think you'd have a whole different well, just take any team. I don't care. Take your local soccer team, local club soccer team, and now all of a sudden tomorrow it's not pay to play. The 20 kids on the team, are they still making the team? I don't think so. I think you got half of that team's probably you got a good portion of that team if it's a high-end team that's getting turned over. So I think that's the most interesting thing about it is if it wasn't pay to play, what would it look like? And I think you'd have, I think the talent level would go up undeniably. I think that there'd be more competition in it. It'd be good for it, but the reality is that these people need to make money that are running these leagues and teams, and it's jobs for them. And the way they do it is through parents paying. If there were sponsorships, big sponsorships all over the country, taking care of that, that'd be excellent. But that's not where we're at right now.
Yeah, so I think you made me think of two things there, and kind of Ray, back to your for the wrong reason comment. I agree with Jeff that obviously structures, organizations need to be in place, and they need to be funded somehow. When you mentioned wrong reasons, Ray, do you think perhaps initially they started off with better intentions?
I think so. There's definitely, and like my exposure here to it was through the community center, right? The rec center when I first got involved. And there it was, minimum charge, so to speak, what I can't remember what it was for 6 weeks. And it was on town owned parks and stuff like that. So I get the problem I see is this in the States, it's just so ingrained, like Jeff said, it's a money thing. And I don't know how we can break that. The towns obviously they're putting that up because they wanted to get some income. They have these fields, even though it's only not that expensive, they get some income in, and it's volunteer parents. If you volunteer, your kid can play free, that kind of stuff. So I I keep trying to go through in my head how we could get out of this cycle, and I've never, you know, come up with the only thing I could ever come close is if the MLS would just kind of start getting involved, even in a bigger, not just in a small environment, but really start pushing it out, like really try to get more involved into it.
So 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 Jeff, based on that, the MLS like maybe taking or some of the pro leagues, does that start to look more like a European model where you're signing kids to contracts at age 12, 13 or whatever, and they're kind of taken care of?
Yeah, and I think that that's kind of what MLS is trying to do at the MLS Next Level, the academies that are on the male side. I mean, a lot of them do not, or most of them, or all of them don't pay. A lot of them are residents. They go to school at that academy. That's already happening in the States. I don't know if that's going to get drilled down or can get drilled down, more and more, but I think as the game becomes more popular and the results matter more, I think that, and people care more about the results, I think then it's more and more possible. But right now it's still, soccer is a third, fourth, fifth sport here in this country. It doesn't matter as much once the dollars, if they ever do come in, so the dollars are overwhelming, they can keep doing that more and more. But until that happens, it'll be in little increments. And I think them doing it at the MLS Next Level, it is helping. We won't notice it. It's in little bits and pieces how the talent pool keeps increasing, but it will keep increasing over the years because of that, because those kids get to play for free.
So I'm thinking the one thing you made me think of, and for both you guys, Ray, you can start us off. Until that happens, like you were talking about, Jeff, how do we cast a bigger net into the like underserved communities and those communities that don't have the funds to be able to play at the higher levels? I feel like we're missing out on a big percentage of talent out there. Ray, thoughts on how we could accommodate that group of players while not there yet?
Um, a thought that come up, and that was from I guess he's the Skip Gilbert. I guess he's still the current CEO of US Youth Soccer. I was doing a little research,
Of course.
and yeah, he was talking about high school. And when I went to high school, I still think high school may have a role here. I know there's modified and there's JV and the seniors, what do you want to call them?
Varsity.
Varsity. Yeah, thank you. Where I went to high school, every kid played sports, and they would have basically your A team, B, and they went down C, D, E. As long as they were kids, they kept filling so X amount of kids per based on your talent. So if you're not an A player, then you're a B, then the C, then you're D, and you went all the way down. I mean, I was like, when I started playing rugby, I never played rugby there. I was like in an F team, and the teachers were, didn't matter what, as long as there's a supervision out there for you doing practices and then games, we would basically play another school that had the same kind of, number of teams, and we'll just go play. And it didn't mean anything, but it got us to play and gave us a chance. And those kids that don't have a chance were playing on school fields. But that worked over there. I don't know if that will work here, because I looked at the schools here. They have the facilities, and half the time I look at the fields, they're not really in use. I mean, and I think, and then the question would be how to get these kids, on a Saturday to play another school. I mean, that was set up that way. So every kid, doesn't matter what grade you are, you get the chance to play, and maybe you find it is something you like or not. So I think high school may be a solution down the road, but because they have the facilities, they have, the everyone knows where their school is, and it's kind of like a safe zone, for lack of a better word, that they could go to.
Yeah, Jeff, thoughts?
Yeah, I think Ray's being hopeful here. I mean, and I just don't think it will happen at the high school level. I mean, at the high school level, you still have, teachers that are tenured into coaching. You could have a coach that has all the licensing in the world, and they could get bumped by a teacher that wants to coach. So I think it I think it has to happen outside of that. I mean, I think it'd be great if the high schools or the schools cared enough. I mean, I'm not saying they don't care about the kids, but I don't think they care enough about that sport or any sport in particular to do it for that sport. So I think it has to happen, going back to, Ray's first point, it has to happen at the US Soccer or MLS Next level. I think there is scouting going on. A lot of the tryouts for these free teams at MLS Next level, they are they are free for the players to come out and try out. Of course, you're talking about now the player has to jump from wherever they were playing at to the highest youth level. So that's a massive jump for some players, but there is that opportunity. So I think that the bridging the gap of, kind of where Ray's going is, what can we give? Where can kids get opportunity in between the level they're at and the highest level to progress them to that highest level? Because not every kid can make that jump from the lowest level to the highest level. It's a challenge. I think there's a lot of ideas out there. I don't think there's any one perfect solution. I think it comes down to the country caring enough about soccer results, and then going to uncover every rock they can. I think they're trying to do that. But I think that that's something that we'll see in small increments that will happen over the course of the next 10, 20, 30 years. And will it bear huge fruit in my lifetime? I don't know, but I think it's bearing fruit, but it's just taking a while.
I think another interesting on the topic of pay to play in high schools, it seems to me, I think I've read it a couple places perhaps, that as like states or school districts or whoever controls that money, they're cutting back on arts and athletics and things like that more. It I've heard in some places you're having to pay to play at high school. Whether that's as simple as you have to buy your kit or they're actually, charging you to share field time or whatever. So I think that starts to add a complexity into the whole environment as well. But what you really made me think of is, if we're getting rid of this pay to play model, if that was the end goal, kind of on the other side of that coin, we talk about, that maybe there's too many dad coaches out there or unpaid parent coaches. So how do we, when there's not income coming in from the traditional source, kind of pay the coaches that deserve to be there? That'll help from the grassroots levels with better instruction, in theory.
Well, the other thing, I don't know, maybe this will, well, again, I go back to the high school, because you don't necessarily need to be playing a full-sided, open field. It could be on a basketball court, 4v4, then small-sided stuff. And half of it's also kind of like just let them play without the supervision. Is really just for safety reason, not instructional, and kind of let them, from a young age, just start kicking around and playing. I mean, that's how a lot of kids play. That's how I kind of learned to play in the backyard. We just started kicking. We got bored. We just started kicking around. There was no one saying, I mean, I've never seen instruction till I came here to the States, where it was so intense and so money driven. So maybe we should start small, like, here's gym time, free time, to play soccer, let's say. And as parents or someone will be just kind of watching, because the other issue I see is, the whole problem here is what adds to the cost of playing is someone will get sued, right? There's always this whole thing, like, whenever we go, you got to sign forms to say, the risk and all the hazards.
Yeah, I think you just opened up another whole can of worms with that one. That'll be for a different topic. Jeff, any final thoughts on this one? Ray mentioned the next topic.
No, I just think that, it's going to take, no matter where you think the bottom level is and the top level, it takes a pyramid. And so it's going to take everybody agreeing on what that pyramid structure looks like. And then, how far down in that pyramid you can drill down the pay or not to pay, to provide opportunities. So, uh, again, everybody caring about the results, it's coming, but the more it comes, the more dollars will be put into this.
I think for me in closing, I don't, and maybe next time we're on this would be a topic. It's kind of the, um, predatory practices of some of these camps and clinics, especially if they're run by school coaches where, hey, it's not written that you have to attend this in the summer, but if you pay your $3,000, chances are you're going to make the team in the fall. It's a little
And
different than this, but
well, let's be honest. I mean, we're in the college level, and that even happens at the college level. So these ID camps that are going on across the country are basically glorified fundraisers for the college team. The amount of players that come out of these ID camps and make the teams are a fraction of what's attending. And players are invited over and over again to the ID camps. Are they invited because they think they can make the team after watching the video? No, they're invited because they want their 150, 200, $250 to go towards that team. And that's not a slam on any coach. You know what I mean? Everybody's trying to build their program up. So I know we're kind of a little bit off topic, but
yeah, we'll shelve that one for the next time.
yeah.
Ray, you segued into our next topic pretty good. Kind of the game as the teacher, less less coach involvement, especially at the younger levels in learning the game. I know me growing up in Canada and learning to play ice hockey, it was kind of on the backyard rink, getting your butt handed to you and kind of picking yourself up and figuring it out and getting back at it and being very creative. Let's talk a little bit about almost the stifling coaching practices where, hey, maybe I even played, but this is the way it's done, and just kind of sucking the creativity out of that. Thoughts?
I would agree with you. Like I said, um, even when I was in high school, we soccer was not. I went to high school in Australia, so soccer was not it. It was rugby or Aussie rules. And when it came to soccer, it was just because we got bored of the other sports after a while, and we started playing it. But there was no one telling us what we can or can't do. Um, Actually, a better example would be basketball. We were one of the high schools that was slowly getting into high basketball, and when we finally did, there was literally no one there telling us what was right and what was wrong. I actually spent time sitting and watching film of Sixers games and whatnot, trying to learn, and then books to read. What's a travel rule? How many steps you can take, and then slowly I just kind of told my roommates to say, hey, this is what it's all about. And that's how we started playing it. So it was all self-taught. And I don't see that today. I mean, you put a kid out there and right away a dad will be hovering over or a mom. It's kind of, it's sad in many ways that they can't just run out there and play. But I'll let Jeff jump in here. I could just rant on about this.
Yeah. I mean, well, look, we're all fairly within the same age to some level. I mean, when we were kids, there's games outside every day. Now there's not. Like you're not calling up 8 people and get in and having a pickup game down the street, like used to happen. Or how do I feel about, these small-sided or pickup games? I love them. But I do think there's a place for each. I think there's a place for coaching and there's a place for pickup. The key is that the player has to want to do both, and the coach has to allow for both and find value in both. So I think a lot of coaches do find value in both. There are some coaches that, they want to make sure that they have total control over the player and everything that goes on with them from their amount of workload to who they work with to who and where they touch the ball with. But I think a combination of them doing it on their own, what are you doing when nobody's looking is, the cliche, and them being coached is the best method.
Yeah, I agree there needs to be a balance. And I think obviously there's more than a couple of factors playing into it. One of them obviously is the, technology and what people spend to do with their free time. I think it's one of the things. God, so many kids these days are just I don't want to say overcommitted, but they have so much going on and so many different choices that I think that free time perhaps is a little less than maybe we had. School, I was told you play the sport that's in season, right? And that was it. You weren't trying to juggle three sports and your homework and all of this. Um, so that being said, and respecting that there is both, how as coaches do we better attune ourselves to this issue and not be so controlling of the environment? Teach them what they need to know because we're still educators, obviously, but give them that, how do we breathe creativity into them at the same time we're helping them?
Well, I think you hit it on the head, Knowles, that you have to value creativity. So if you're as a coach, if you don't value creativity in the player or the value them having six different or six uh, things that they can consider during a game when they've got the ball, and you only want them to consider one thing, it's not going to happen. So I guess it's really comes down to, personal preference by the coach. But if a coach values creativity or sees different options that a player can do in different situations, they might have a tactic that the coach really wants to see happen in most of the cases. But if they can value them having what their choices were and what they might do, I think then you can get that. But if the coach does not value creativity, you're not going to get it. And I think there's a lot of great coaches that it's my way or the highway. So you have to bow to them. But there's a lot of great coaches that are a little bit more open to being a little bit more flexible. So I think as a player or as a parent, you really have to dig into that coach's um, preferences and watch a training session and get to know the coach a little bit before you just jump on that team. And if that's something that you want to do and then you're not able to do it.
Well, I think that's a good point. And Ray, Jeff made me think of something that I'm interested in your take on is that, just because you have a wealth of experience on your own side from whether it's playing or whatever it is, I think you can be a little closed-minded in terms of that creativity because are we too quick as coaches to brush something off and saying, well, that didn't work for me, so I'm not going to try to set that environment up because I just don't buy it. It didn't work for me. What do you think? What are your thoughts?
Um, if I was actually going to comment on what Jeff said, I think the other half of the story, and you touched on it towards the end, was the parent side. Um, I've had experience where earlier on when I did coach one of the club age groups, and I did it for one season, and I said never again. And there were times in the game when I let the kids decide what they wanted to do. Let's say, how coaches like to have signals. Oh, let's put the signal up, and you're gonna do this kind of set play thing on corner kicks. And this time, I just let them do what they felt they wanted to do at the time. And after the game, I got pulled over in the garage, in the parking lot by a parent and said, "You shouldn't have let them do that." So it 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 like I agree. You have, as a parent, you have to see whether you like what the coach is doing. But the problem is time. How much time do you have? You have them what, twice a week, three if you're lucky, and total time 3 hours, four. So how do you get? The parents are great at sitting in the beginning of the season and say, yeah, okay, okay, okay. But then as things go along and they don't quite work out, you get all this flack from them. There's really you don't have enough time to really get that idea across of what you want to do. I mean, RDSY, what is it, the local soccer federation here. I remember back in the day, they were fighting against going down to 99 or whatever that is. It was always 11 belt, that kind of stuff. So I think half the problem are the parents. I always come back to, you could have a great coach, but if the parents don't let them, do what they want, or what the parents expect should be done, then it's a losing battle.
I think that ties back into I was talking about coach experience and things that didn't work for them. I think maybe from the parent side, it's a combination of that and the pay for play, right? So you're
Yeah.
paying $5,000 to be on this elite premier level team, and you have expectations of what coaching looks like, whether that's the way you were brought up or the way you played, and you
Right.
don't see that, especially if you're giving the players a little bit of autonomy and ability to figure it out. I think they're like, well, that's not coaching.
Right.
Well,
Would you
that's where
agree
they
with that, Jeff?
that's where they butt heads, to be honest with you. That's what I see. You know, so you've got the paying versus the what you expect for that pay is it butts heads. So I pick the dollar amount, $5,000. If you're paying $5,000, not only are you expecting something from the coach, but you're expecting something out of your player that he or she's going to be given something for that 5,000. What you're not expecting is that that player is going to have to earn everything they get because you're paying. So that's where that's where when I say it butts into each other, that's where they have a challenge. And I see that a lot currently, so the I know we're going back to our last topic a little bit, but that's going to come into play when you're talking about paying. It's hard. I don't want to slam parents too much. I'm a parent, you know what I mean? So I got to wear my parent hat when I go out there sometimes. So I make these same mistakes. But we, if right now mindset's big at the pro game, mindset's big at the college game, mindset is still much in the developmental stage at the youth and high school game. And it's almost um, and when I say mindset, it's not just for the player, it's also for the parent. And so, everybody is expecting to get something for what they're paying, and they don't always get what they expect. So,
I think the mindset, well, quickly, I think what I always try to remember when I'm coaching the younger levels is that really, as long as you're coaching from the right place, we want the same thing as coaches that the parents want. We want their kids to be successful. And I think maybe the windows of that house we're looking in might be different windows. And I found a lot of the times it's either a lack of communication or, we're putting up boundaries with each other and hey, I'm the coach, and then like, well, it's my kid, and I think we get into that kind of um, interaction.
except that the coach is able to be more patient with that path, whereas the parent, that patient might less. Hey, my player worked hard this week. I'm expecting this weekend. I'm expecting them to play 90 minutes or whatever it is. I'm expecting them to play at this position. They worked hard this week. What do you mean they're not playing, or what do you mean they're coming off the bench? Whereas a coach, you see the path differently. You see that path developing. That path takes a while. You're also comparing unbiasedly, hopefully, that their player to another player on the team, where the parent isn't necessarily as unbiased when they're looking at their own player. So,
I, I kind
yeah.
of, I agree. And I also think today, more so than say when I remember about 10 years or so ago, there are now a lot more options for people to jump, I think. So if it's not working, if I'm paying you this money and it's not working out, I'm going somewhere else. It's a lot easier. I feel like it's a lot easier these days for people to do that. And so I don't know, if that's contributing to, in 10 years ago, I had kids on my daughter's team that were on 3 squads. They were on the junior rhinos, they were on their local club team, and then they were playing this select team for their town and whatever. And then by the time they went to college, they were like beat. But they did not jump. They were, they had a one premier club, which was junior rhinos. They didn't go all over the map, Buffalo, Syracuse, or whatever. Today I feel like it's a very easy thing. It doesn't work. I'm going somewhere else. I'm taking my money and I'm going somewhere else. So that's another problem I see.
That's a whole nother problem. And I do think that's where, like, at the MLS next level, they realize that, and that's why players aren't able to play high school. They play there at MLS next, or they don't play, you know what I mean? That's where they
Yeah,
play.
right.
So, but and I think what you're getting into, Ray, is really issue more in this market that we're in Western New York. I don't know that in every other market in the country it's as so viable like it is here. Like there's a lot of jumping here because there's a lot of different clubs or whatever, but I don't know that it's that way everywhere else.
You,
Well,
oh, sorry.
no,
I,
I mean, and I'm not sure I've seen it in soccer as much as of a couple of the other sports. I've seen it in ice hockey and lacrosse, in that back to this parent dynamic where, hey, my kid's not, why'd they get cut, or why'd they get put on the B team of this club? I'm going to go grab a few other parents, and go start my own club because my kid is absolutely a triple A kid. And besides the death of loyalty, if that's what you want to call it, that we're kind of talking about, I feel in some regard it's the maybe the national bodies of the sports don't have a clearly defined standard of what each of those levels are. So there's confusion upon it. And of course, everyone, especially if you're paying again, wants their kid to be at the top level playing all the time. But the sad reality is that's not always true.
Yeah, one pyramid, one set of standards, all the way down. It's hard to develop, but if you can do it, to your point, Nosy, then you can start to get what you can start from that base. But what we've done here is we don't have a base. You know what I mean? In some instances, there's different standards. There might be three different pyramids for the same sport in the same area of the country. But if you can get one pyramid, one set of standards, then you can start to then focus on all these other things. But I think that's where it really needs to start. And I think that they're trying to do that, but it's very challenging.
Well, I think back to one of your points about maybe it's this regional thing. I feel like in certain regions, and I've seen it in this area, where a level of competition gets so watered down. Let's say, okay, we're playing triple A. You go to a national tournament for a triple A's, and all of a sudden the California teams are just sweeping you up because they don't have such a pervasive issue with that. Ray, thoughts?
yeah, no, I agree with Jeff about the problem is just, it goes back to that first problem is this is for a lot of these people, it seems to me like a money-making venture. And so everyone has to have that finger in the pie. And in our area here, we just don't have the population or the kids, like say, the DC, Virginia area or Maryland area there, that kind of, New York City, New Jersey area. There's a ton of kids, and even the kids who are living in not the best of places for them to get somewhere, there's public transportation that can help. I here it's like you want me to drive from the city out to John Street. You're gonna come pick me up, that kind of thing. So I'm not sure. Every time I think about it, I get a little depressed about around here.
I think the other thing that plays into some of this, and kind of thinking back to the prior topic with, are we overcoached? Are we hopping teams around too much? And Jeff, you mentioned mindset at one point. I think one of the overlooked aspects of this is there's a rise in, I'll call it, performance mindset issues in athletes these days. And I think, like, the taking away the creativity space, the constantly joysticking them, I'll just hop programs here and there. They're not taught resiliency. They don't get a chance to work on confidence and working through obstacles. It's just like, oh, okay, you're struggling there. I'm going to pop you into this environment. So I think the performance mindset of these athletes is also paying a price due to this.
Yeah, I think so. And I guess, I mean, I use an analogy if, with parents, if you were a painter, or do these things that, some of these players demonstrate, would they be on the canvas or off the canvas? If they're off the canvas, then it's an issue. And so a lot of players and parents don't recognize or don't focus on things that are on the canvas. They're okay with arguing with the ref. They're okay with screaming at a teammate. They're okay with not being a good teammate, or they make excuses for it. So I think you have to get things on the canvas first, and then once everything's on the canvas, you have to really focus on those things that are really mindset items to improve those with the players, to get them to the best, give them the best, opportunity to perform, and more than anybody that, that there's, whatever percentage you want to put on it, whether it's 50% or 10% or 20%, mindset's a big deal.
I think it's interesting. You use the painting analogy and the what's on the canvas stuff. It made me think back to the pay to play thing as you were talking about how, as parents, we're investing in something. And, maybe some of this friction is that, we don't feel we're getting what we put into our investment. Like if your stock prices are dropping, you like bail out, right? So maybe that's part of your perceived value of what you're getting from all aspects of that. Ray, thoughts?
Yeah, I was going to ask you how do we set up an opportunity where the mindset can develop for these kids? Um, I don't know. Is this where the backyard playing on their own? That's where their mindset develops.
Well, I
But
mean, I think in terms of, in terms of your mental toughness, that
right,
big umbrella, I think that grows. But it's funny because I've been trying to incorporate some of this in practices that I've been doing recently because obviously it is what it is these days. And I try to set up environments like how can you take that performance mindset thing you want to work on, let's say confidence, and how can you bake that into a practice? And I've been trying to sit with the athletes, tell them what we're doing for the practice, think about what they want to get out of it, and then pick a mindset topic. So let's say confidence, and I'll say, "Hey, so Ray, I want you to show me what confidence looks like today when you're out there going through this. What does that look like?" And we talk about what that might look like and what scenarios you might have to use something. And then so I try to build some of that intentionality. Oh man, I just got beat. Am I going to slump my shoulders or am I going to keep them up and go back at it? So I think it's intentionally trying to make our environment support and give the space for that kind of stuff, I think's maybe a way to do it.
but do you think it's too late? I mean, when by the time we get them in college, they're 18, 19. It's like muscle memory kind of, if they didn't have it when they were little kids or they didn't get to learn how to fail and pick themselves up, then what can we do in the short amount of time you have them?
It's,
Yeah.
I mean, right now it's at the youth. If you're asking if it's too late, if you're talking about a youth or a high school player, somebody under the college age,
Yeah,
I feel like for the most part, it's an untapped item at those levels. So yeah, you are. I think that again, I don't think 20 years ago, 10 years ago, we were hearing about mindset,
yeah,
but as much,
mm,
but
yeah,
it is coming down. It's at the professional level. You're hearing about it at the college level. Certainly, there's a lot of people out there now that are doing it, privately or for colleges. We're well aware of Inky Johnson from our culture meetings at the college, and he visits. We get him via recordings that we steal off of YouTube, but he's actually at dozen of high level colleges every year, that he's being invited back in. So how long till that drills down to the youth, or the youth high school club level, where coaches then are instilling that in their players, but I think before, at the end of the day, it still has to be fun. The players still have to have an opportunity to create, and then if they're good enough and they're rising to another level in their play, then certainly I think mindset has to be added to their tool bag per se, to help them compete at the highest levels. And right now, most players are getting introduced to that at college.
And I don't agree with, or I don't think it's too late when we get them at the college level. I think it's more difficult and it takes more commitment from the coaching side because, you know, the muscle memory or the, you know, the self-doubt or whatever they've developed over that time is a little tougher to break. But I think in my experience, if you can build a trusting relationship with the athlete and you can identify, you know, show them I can help you do this if you just let me work with you on this a little bit and kind of do small steps, right? And they see a little success, they're like, oh, okay, maybe that will work. What do they say? It's dark in a room until you turn a light, but you can always turn the switch on and the dark's gone.
Yeah, it's definitely not too late, but the issue right now is there's a huge gap. If you take, 10 incoming freshmen, the gap between the player that has been exposed to mindset or already has one just a strong mindset based on just on their own talents, or and the player that's never been exposed to it, that's a big gap. Whereas that might not be the same gap between them, I don't know, taking a free kick. They might have all done that before. So I think that as a gap decreases and more are exposed to it, it won't, not only will it not be too late, but you can then ramp that up at the college level to even higher standards.
Well, then imagine in that environment where that starts to happen, you have a dropout rate that's less, which means you have a bigger talent pool to draw from, which in theory just makes everything upward better.
Well, I mean, in reality, I mean, why do players drop from teams? Because if I had to if I had to pick one reason why, it's probably a mindset issue because they're not getting what they thought they were going to get, or it didn't turn the experience isn't what they thought the experience was going to be like, or for the work they think they're putting in, they're not, you
Not getting
know,
what they want out of it.
yeah,
Yeah.
they're not getting what they want out of it. So, I mean, you're seeing that with the transfer portal right now. I mean, are players transferring for some other reason? No, they're transferring because they want something. There's something that they picked a college for one reason, and then there's something in that first year that you could. There's a varying number of reasons why, that it didn't work out the way they thought, or there's something brighter on the other side of the horizon, and then they're going to transfer.
Yeah, we basically have free agency at all levels of the sports these days.
It will be free agency, Nosy. So
Yeah. Well,
right now it's you can transfer twice at the
right.
D1 level. Well, you can transfer a second time. By the time this is over with, my prediction will be that they won't be able to hold players back. If they want to transfer every year, they'll be able to transfer every year. I mean, legally, it's being challenged in the courts. It's went from 1 to 2. It's only a matter of time before somebody challenges to go from 2 to 3, and there you go. There'll be 3 will be basically every year.
Another good topic for another day.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah.
it's kind of similar. We talked about a little bit, Ray. The single sport issue, the 24 by 7 by 365. You know, I'm a soccer player. I must play 12 months a year, or not going to make this team or that team, and I won't get into my college and stuff like that.
Yeah.
As I mentioned earlier, you know, that's the sport that was in season. That's what we used to play. I'm sure it just wasn't me. And now, you know, God, if you play two sports, you're like, talk about not having any time for anything. Thoughts on the single sport issue, right?
It's kind of unfortunate. My kid grew up doing that. Both my kids did that. Only maybe senior year, my daughter said, "Hey, I want to just do lacrosse for the fun of it." And I said, "All right, go ahead." I'm not gonna stop her and then have her be grumpy. And then another kid that decided to go switch over to tennis. And then one day said, "Look at those little kids. They hit the ball better than I do." I go, "Well, that's because they were playing. Look at how small they're like 6, 7 years old, and they can whack that ball. It's no different than you when you were 6, 7 kicking the ball." It is a sad thing, but it's almost, I don't know, the nature of where things are. I mean, look at if you look at other countries, a lot of them also have single sports. I mean, it's the sport. So by default, it is a single sport, but they don't have it as structured or organized as we do. So it's, you know, I think it's everywhere there's a single sport idea, but it's just how controlling or how structured it is. Um, that's what I see.
Yeah, and I think at some age you have to kind of flip the switch and focus on one if you want to be successful at it. Jeff, your thoughts on this?
And I would just say that, you know, I value multi-sports. I think that, you know, going back to being creative, you know, I think you know, you don't, everything doesn't have to be structured. You could pick a sport that is your sport that you really want to focus on and be coached on and go to training for. And then you can play 4 other sports just for fun with your friends, you know, or in pickup games or whatever. That is what's optimal to me. I think to your point, Nosy, at the younger ages, there's more opportunity to be coached in multiple sports. But if you become good in 1 or 2 or however many sports, at some point you're going to have to pick. You know, there's only one Deion Sanders, you know, that could play multiple sports. There's only, you know, a couple of those people in the world, you know, that, you know, can play at the highest level of multiple sports. So it's probably at some point you have to pick. I mean, as a parent, you know, I had 3 kids. They all played one organized sport, but that was more, if I had one kid, then maybe I would have had them in 3 different sports, but try taking 3 different kids to at least one sport. You know what I mean? That was my multi-sport, having multi different kid, you know, 3 kids in sports. So that was my multi-sport, is, you know, that took up enough of my time right there.
Right.
Um,
I think that's a very valid point you bring up with, you know, I had 2 kids and you had 3. I mean, if you're doing this and it depending on, you know, what the household situation is, that's another job in itself, driving them and trying to get them all over the place. And so I can't, you know, it's almost like just by the nature of things, to keep your sanity, it'd be easier if you just say, all right, we're all going to the car because we're all going to the same place for the same thing. You know,
yeah,
so
yeah.
yeah.
What are your thoughts on let's call it the off seasons if they ever occur? Do we encourage these athletes to like absolutely not participate in their primary sport and maybe, you know, go do whatever other hobby you like to do? Or do we encourage them to pick up something that maybe has a relatable skill that's completely different to keep the fun and so they don't get burned out? What are your thoughts on?
See that, and that's the, you hit it on the head there with one of your words when you said encourage. And I think at the parent level, a lot of times it's a little bit more than encourage, and that's a problem. It should be whatever the player or the son or daughter wants. You know, do they want, hey, do you want to keep playing soccer in the winter, or, you know, or do you want to try out these other sports? So I think a lot of parents do offer up different opportunities, but I think there's a lot of type A parents that are like, okay, hey, we just finished the season. Now, if we really want to get good, we probably should go into this other thing and do this other training. I'm as guilty of it as anybody, you guys. I've done it multiple times with each one of my kids. So,
Well,
you know what I mean? But in my mind, I wanted them to be the best. I wanted them to be the best they be. It was with the best intentions, but it's, you know, at some point it's not as, it's, you know, you hope as a parent that you are offering them opportunities and encouraging them to do different things. And, you know, if they pick that and they're like, hey, I want to be the best soccer player, okay, then let's keep going at this. In the off season, we're going to do this. But, you know, I think, you know, that how many parents and coaches have open conversations with a 10, 12, 14, 16-year-old about that. When I say open, the player is really being listened to, and giving their feedback. You know, you hope it's 100%, but I don't know that it is.
Well, I think
yeah,
another interesting thing is if you have that over you have that kid who just really wants to do soccer and that's all they want to do. how do you educate them and again encourage them that maybe you're exposing yourself to a higher risk of injury because you're not exercising these movements and these muscles from different angles, or maybe it's just overuse of a certain movement. How do you on that kid who's really focused in on that one, how do you encourage them to get a more holistic what do you want to call it, fitness level,
Well,
right?
well, yeah, let Ray go. But I mean, you're assuming, Nosy, with that question, that parents even know that that's a risk. I mean, do they even have that data in front of them? I mean, how many parents actually know that, or have seen that or read articles on that? I don't know how many have, so I think that's the first hurdle before they even make that decision.
I don't think, to just add on that, I don't think parents just, I mean, I don't think they're educated on that part, because I've seen kids on 3 teams. And it's single sport soccer. They're on 3 different teams, and I just can't, even when my kid played on junior rhinos, I got the call from Fairpost, hey, can your kid double roster? I said, no, I don't want her to get tired and get hurt. That's because I educated myself a little bit. I took some coaching classes and did the licensing and all of that, and got that news. But I don't think parents out there know about that stuff. And to add on your thing about the multiple sport thing, I agree with you though. It's easier when they're a lot younger. They themselves really don't know what they want to do, so you do try out a lot of things. But then at some point, because everything here is pay to play, dance, whatever, there is an economic factor that comes into play quite a bit. So that definitely gets harder for the parent and that's probably why the expectation is so high. They want to get, like you said, big bang for their bucks kind of thing. It's a vicious cycle. The more I think about it, as I look at the topics, everything just kind of falls back on itself.
Well, it's funny. I was just thinking that myself because you almost segued into my next thought. My next topic is like kind of revenue over health. And you kind of talked about the pay to play and the injury stuff. But if we even look at the pro levels, just recently they were trying to put together that European Super League, and FIFA, right on the heels of that women's ACL study saying too many games, too close, too much travel, stuff like that. You have FIFA doing the right thing and saying, no, I don't think we should do this. And then the courts come and overturn that, saying, they can do that if they want. And you've got big clubs saying, yeah, we want to play that. At what point is too much for the mighty buck?
Go ahead, Ray. I mean, yeah,
That's I some of it I'm wondering, like the women and the ACL. I mean, the sports tech, well, for lack of a better word, the sports science is involved, I think, faster than the human body. I think we're putting, it used to be the 4 minute, was it 4 minute mile? Now it's like you're trying to run the 100 and what, some crazy. I mean, the body is not. I think at some point the human body just says, look, I can't do it anymore, not without drugs or whatnot. I mean, for example, just take the cyclists, the Tour de France guys. I mean, I doubt any one of them are clean in any degree. I mean, they have. You just think about what they're doing. It's how can the body physically, I don't think we're ready for that. I don't think the human body's evolved where, so yeah, you're pushing a lot of that stuff. And I think a lot of it may be just we're reaching a limit, performance wise. How much more can we go? So
Yeah, Nosy, I don't know where you want me to go with that. Like, as far as we could go different directions with that, as far
yeah,
as, that whole thing, whether you're asking about injuries or you're asking about Super League.
Well, so so Jeff, you're the owner of this high profile, highly successful team, and you have what do we have? 20 highly valuable, highly expensive assets that you're taking care of that are directly responsible for your financial livelihood, if you will, and a bunch of other people's. Um, So at what point do you quit entering your teams into games, into tournaments, into other leagues, more games, more games, more games, more fans, more money? At some point, your assets are just going to, they're going to injure themselves out of the game. There's been cases of serious injury on the fields. When's it too much? When's the balance between what's right for the athlete and what's right for the bottom line?
Well, I think the organizations have to look at some of these tournaments and just punt them. So if something better comes up, then that means something else should go. So, and I'll give you an example. So the Gold Cup in the United States, if I was all superpower, I would punt that thing in a heartbeat because we've got Copa America for the U.S. national team to play in. We don't need the Gold Cup. We can go enter in that this year. It's going to be in the United States. In a couple more years, when it's back in South America again, we can ask to go play down there in that. So I think there's competitions, no matter what level, that can be maybe they should be added, but then there's something that should be removed at the same time with the players. I guess if maybe you got to look at it as a three-legged stool. You need the revenue for the team, so that's one leg. You need the players, that's an asset. You need that as another one, and then you need the fan interest or whatever is a three-legged stool. And if either one of those three legs comes out of balance, your stool falls, right? So like keep that stool in place all the time, between those three things. I mean, that's probably the most successful way to run any business, is to pick, your three biggest priorities and make sure they stay in balance.
Well, in some of these tournaments, you have to wonder why do they exist? Why are they getting put in place? Does somebody else actually need another trophy? Are they being set up so somebody who wasn't getting a trophy gets a trophy? Ray's favorite word, the participation trophies. It almost makes me think of the college bowl games. I mean, what are there, 60, 70 bowl games now? I mean, there's a Pop-Tart bowl. Yeah, I won the Pop-Tart bowl. I mean,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's so when I went, I took a business class once, and there was a question in the exam that asked, would you take care of your your like your quarterback, your franchise player who's hurt and all that, or would you just go? Basically, the answer to that question, I was writing an essay saying why you got to take care of that person, because the money, the time, and all that, and you never know what you get. If you got a good, known entity, you want to take care of that asset. But the answer that the business professor was looking for is no, you go out and you buy another one, And so it kind of goes back to when I look at all these things, these guys are all thinking, yeah, you're hurt. All right, transfer window. We'll try and find another person, especially those clubs with the money. And soccer is just a lucrative sport. But I'm just thinking, I mean, we can just look at the example of the EPL game, right? Right now it's split up between Peacock, USA. Each one has a little bit of the pie, so the money is just too tempting right now. I don't know. I mean, yeah, I'm talking about, of course, the for profit. I mean, they're all for profit, all the clubs. I'm not talking so much about the national team, but I'm thinking more about the clubs. The money and all that. It's just like I go back to, I like promotion relegation, but we don't have it here. We do have it in the junior league, like RDYSL has it, but MLS, no, they all want the money. They're not going to drop out of there. Even the owner of the Fulham, what was his big? He's an American football owner club too. What's his biggest nightmare? Promotion relegation. Why? Because you lose money. So the almighty dollar, it's really sad, but it kind of hurts a lot. But that's also what it's vicious, because the mighty dollar is also what brings out talent, right? You get the hungry person who wants to make it, and they're going to sacrifice a lot to do it. And then the result of that is you see them on the field doing things that you go like, holy cow, how did that person do that? So I don't know. I have a hard time with this whole thing when it comes to that money part. And yeah, that's always kind of bugging me quite a bit. I enjoy the sports, don't get me wrong.
No, obviously, people want a good living and they're getting paid because people watch, but at some point, I mean, a good living and just abusing, something's getting abused somewhere.
Right. Yeah, no, I agree with you. I don't disagree with you
Yeah,
there.
I mean, an ACL injuries, I mean, they seem to me like they're more prevalent,
Yeah,
on both sides. So, something, will something be done? I don't know, but I think if the product starts to hurt on the field, whether that's because of injury or just because of the way it looks,
right,
maybe that'll be the eye opener. But until that happens, and as long as people are watching and attending and viewing and whatever, they're gonna keep adding. They're not gonna subtract, you
right,
know.
right.
Okay, last topic, boys. Want to respect your time. Jeff, you kind of alluded to the transfer portal earlier, and it's on the rise a little bit. Let's talk about um, going through the recruiting process as a young athlete and finding the right fit for you. It seems to me there's so much over allure of playing D1, let's say, that D2, D3, all other levels that would be great are just completely overlooked. And honestly, there's a lot of discrepancy in the level of play in at any level. So what are your thoughts about like I'll call it D1 snobbery?
Yeah, I guess we can go there, but before we even get there, let's talk about, if I'm advising a player and a family on looking for that college opportunity, let's just say they're good enough to play in college, whether it's D1, D2, or D3. All right. You need to do more than just going to meet with the coach. You need to go watch a game. You need to go meet with the coach. You need to go attend a training session. You might even need to go attend a training session in a game when the coach doesn't know you're there. And the reason I say that is because I think there's a lot of trying to put on your best self in front of that person, and that goes both ways, the player and the coach. But when you're going to live with that coach for 6 days a week for 4 years, you need to know that that person's somebody you can go lock and step with on game day and in training sessions. There's a lot of interaction that goes on. And if you think that the coach is going to be the way the coach was when you met with them in their office for an hour, man, and when they schmoozed all over you because they want you at that school, you're making a big mistake. And so what I tell players is, as far as getting back to your D1, wrapping around your D1, is that, and this is really hard for players and parents, is that the best day for a lot of players with D1 is their signing day. The day they sign ends up being better than any other day they played at D1. Now, there's a lot of players that have a great D1 experience. I'm not here knocking D1. If my kids can play D1, I'd love it. But there's also a lot of players that can't wait for that signing day, and then they overlook the other things I was alluding to, as far as, is it going to work for them 6 days a week? Are they going to be a productive unit in that environment? And when I say productive, they're enjoying the game, they're enjoying the training session, they're getting better, they're challenged, but they're not, they're not over challenged or under challenged. They're getting actually value, and the team's getting value from them. So I think you have to, you really try to have to do all that and really keep an open mind of, what type of experience do I want, whether it's D1, D2, or D3. Do I just want to sign a D1? I mean, do I want to sign a D1 and I want to play and I want to play this position? Well, you better know that you can do that. Or do you want to get a lot of playing time, and you know that you figure out that you can't do that at D1, but you can do that at D2? Well, then why aren't we looking at D2? And likewise with D3, so that's how I would kind of answer that question.
Well, and at any level on that, just to your point of the signing days, it's like buying a boat. The day you buy it and the day you get rid of it are the best 2 days. But I mean, are you ready to put in the work? I don't care what level you're talking about, but you could have been the best in your high school. Now you're just one of 20 that were the best in their high school. So I think that understanding has to be there. And to your point on the school, there's plenty of D2 schools that can beat D1 schools and threes that can
Vice
beat
versa.
twos
Yeah,
and probably ones. So, kind of under just to say, oh, D1 doesn't mean it's it's the right thing for you.
No, and I know Ray wants to jump in here, but I'll just say I just want to make a point. Look, if we can play D1, we should be going D1. We should always be trying to play at the highest level we can play. But we need to
Absolutely.
look, we need to help players, parents and players and coaches need to help players make sure they're having a realistic vision of what they want to get out of their 4 years of experience. If they want, if they can play and be productive at D1, heck yeah, they should go there. But if they can make the team and they're not going to play and they're okay with that, okay, go there. But if they can, if that's not what they want, if they really want to be productive, they want to play, they want to produce on the field, then you really need to open your eyes and say, and get real unbiased opinions on what level you're at. And I think that, if we were to wrap this whole conversation up, we're going all the way back to paying at the beginning. When parents pay and they multiply that times the number of years they've been paying, then they want to they want to go to the highest level they can go to,
Right.
because they think that they've put in that investment and now they want to get that investment back. But that might not necessarily mean that the player has a good 4 year experience. And more than that, if they really care about the game and the family cares about that sport and their player playing that sport, don't they want to see that player really enjoy those 4 years or maybe even play beyond that and just enjoy the sport well after college? You know what I mean? There's only so many. What's the percentage of athletes to go pro in any sport? That number is very small.
Very
So
small.
yeah, I think
Right.
like less than 1% or less. But actually, this is where I think if anyone can help the kids, it's really the parents at this point. I always it would be nice if the parent for the one time in a kid's sports academic, you know, life, what do you want to call it, where the parents I think can help out a lot is where they can do a lot of the homework. They know their kids, their school, what they're capable of, and they can actually help the kid by maybe doing a little research about, give them a dozen schools like, that may be of interest to the kid, and go from there. I think too many kids here, too many parents here are just thinking, well, if my kid's good, the offers will come in, kind of thing, sit back, it'll come in. Um, but I think if they did a little bit of homework and talk about pay to play, if they're supporting the kids through college, that's going to be a lot of pay, right? I mean, that's that's a lot of money now that you're actually investing in your kid. And so you should really, if there's a one time you want to do your homework, that's the time. You gotta really, know what kind of school, get to, that your kid wants to, and it is sports the primary goal. A lot of them don't try to differentiate that. And I agree with what Jeff said. The best day is the signing day. I don't know how many kids came out of junior Rhinos or Empire that sign, and then the following year they're transferred to another school, right? They hardly got any playing time or whatnot.
Well,
They
that's
made
back to the transferring out and things, right? And the increase in the transfer portal, that kind of free agency we talked
yeah,
about. If you're not doing that homework, you're not going to Jeff's point, get that experience. Now you're unhappy and you want to go somewhere else. And
right.
I think there may or may not be valid reasons to do that. Maybe a coach change, right? Like how many kids are going to decommit or leave now that Saban's gone, right? Uh, who knows? But I think the one piece we're overlooking here is the academic piece of it, even. I mean,
Right.
I've always heard that, the kid should think, man, if I suffer a career-ending injury, is this the school I want to get my degree from? And I think at some point they might come to this understanding that, wow, not really, so I need out. And I guess it goes back to homework a little bit, but with an academic focus.
I think that should always be, you know, the number one thing because, like you said, at career like ACL injuries or whatnot. I mean, what was her name last uh at Roberts? She had quite a few ACL. One as soon as it gets fixed, then the other knee went. I can't remember. So yeah, I think education should be way up there first, and then kind of not, almost on an equal or slightly below, is sports the thing. I think for the boys, my feeling, I don't, you can correct me here now, Jeff. I think for the boys' side now, the opportunity to go to kind of skip college and go around that is better than it was, 10 years, 15 years ago. They don't have to necessarily go to college if they want to go pro. I mean, the opportunities, I think, is better for the boys than it is actually right now than the girls. So if a kid says I'm gonna play soccer and that's it, then to me I go like, right, you're young, go for it. And skip college if you can, because in my mind, you can always go back to school. It's not too late.
Jeff, any wrapping thoughts?
No, I don't have any wrapping thoughts. I think we might have over topicked. We probably could have went with one or two, and really, like, I think we had a lot to say on a lot of different things. So this was good stuff.
I think we opened Pandora's box and are going to need to do
Yeah.
another episode with all the loose ends we left. Ray, any closing thoughts?
No, I wasn't gonna touch Jeff hot topic button.
No, 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 no. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, we'll do that another day.
Yeah, that's a whole episode to itself.
Oh,
Yeah.
I've given that one some thought too, but yes, that is a very interesting one when you brought that up a week or so ago.
Yeah.
That is, yeah. Anyway,
Jeff, Ray, appreciate your time tonight. It was a great conversation. Hopefully our 5 viewers find it insightful as well. And we'll have to do it again. Thank you, guys.
All right.
All right, thank you very
Have a
much.
great night, guys.
Have
You
a good
too.
one.
Take it easy.
Bye.